Hey, everybody. Thanks for staying with us here at Football Fridays at the Eck. Our second guest this afternoon, former Notre Dame defensive lineman, current Detroit Lions standout, Romeo Okwara. Everybody, welcome Romeo to the stage. Romeo, thank you so much for being with us here. We'll talk about football in just a minute, but your background is so unique, so interesting. You spent the first 10 years of your life growing up in Nigeria before moving to Charlotte. What was that transition like for you?
I mean, it was really different, obviously. Nigeria is in a different continent, and food was really different. I mean, grew up in a different culture. So moving here was definitely a little different, moving down to the south in Charlotte. But it was a pretty easy transition. I was really young.
Now, you weren't involved with football before you moved here to the States, I'm assuming. How did you get involved with football and Notre Dame specifically?
I was watching the Panthers in Charlotte, and I kind of fell in love with the game there. And when out during the recruiting process in high school, Notre Dame came to visit. I think that was the first time I heard of Notre Dame, and took a visit up here and fell in love with it, and committed almost instantly.
Who are your favorite Panthers growing up?
Julius Peppers and Steve Smith. Those two were my favorite for sure. Obviously, Julius Peppers on the D-line, pass rushing. He was a force for many years.
Again, with the interesting thread here, when you got to campus as an early freshman, you were 16 years old. You played your freshman season at 17. What type of transition is that like? You're going against 22-year-olds in practice every day.
I was pretty big, so it didn't really feel different for me. I was obviously really young, but I never felt any type of disadvantage being on the field.
That freshman season, you guys go 12-0. End the season down in Miami in the BCS National Championship. You played in all 13 games that season, mainly on special teams. What about that year stands out to you now, 7 years later?
I mean, it was incredible. Obviously, coming from my freshman year and being around such a great team with a great defense, it was really special, winning every game, and then not ending the way we wanted to, but it was really special to be part of that team. I love all those guys.
Your sophomore and junior year, you start to play a little bit more, shift down to defensive end from linebacker. Lead the team in sacks your junior year and your senior year. You have a huge breakout on the way, the Fiesta Bowl. What about that year stands out to you as you're a senior and a late field goal away from maybe sneaking into the playoff too?
Yeah, just growing up and just improving each and every year. We had a really good team, really good defense, obviously with Jalen Smith and Sheldon Day, Isaac Rochelle. Countless guy, Joe Smith, on that team, and we were just really close. We were just a bunch of Notre Dame guys, and we all loved each other, and we just didn't finish like the way we wanted to again. But it was awesome. It was a great 4 years.
We know how your role on the field changed. How did it change off the field during those 4 years in the locker room?
Off the field in terms of academics, or
no, just kind of in a leadership capacity as a 4-year player for Coach Kelly.
Yeah, I mean, I try to lead it as an example. I just try to go to practice every day with the right mindset and just work hard, and that's all I really did. I just put my nose down and worked hard every year, and just hope everything else took care of itself.
Oh, it did, as we said, 8 sacks your senior year here. Now, I look back at some of the rosters from your 4 years here and looked at some of the NFL offensive linemen that you went up against in practice. Nick and Zach Martin, Ronnie Stanley, Mike McGlinchey, Quentin Nelson. Who was the toughest one of those to go up against?
I mean, I'll give it to Ronnie because he was my classmate. But all those guys were all incredible. I mean, talk about people that get you better each and every day of practice. I mean, they're all great candidates for that, and obviously helped me improve as a player.
What were those battles like? Who won more often than not?
I mean, I think I won all of them. Ronnie will tell you. Each and every one of them.
He's not here to defend himself, so we'll let it go.
Exactly.
After Notre Dame, you weren't drafted. In fact, I found a draft profile that said, quote, Okwara is missing the quickness to be an NFL pass rusher while being a block magnet in the running game. What's up with that?
I think I screenshotted that one too, put it in the folder. But I don't know. I mean, people have their opinions. All I can do is just kind of work and get better at things I need to get better at, and I just speak on the field.
Do things like that come across your radar? I mean, I know you try to zone out outside things like that, but Is it hard to really, especially around draft time, really to zone that out?
For me, I mean, I knew my work ethic. I knew I was going to get an opportunity on whether I was drafted or undrafted. I knew I was going to get a shot. So all I tried to do was just make the best of my opportunity. Whatever team I landed on, everyone has their opinions, and it didn't really matter to me.
You end up signing with the Giants in New York, playing 2 years there, 24 games with Big Blue. We actually have a clip from one of those games. Let's go ahead and take a look at that.
Elliott is the running back here. Play action. Pocket breaks down, and there's the sack at the 16-yard line. Okwara, the rookie from Notre Dame, taking the JPP role up front, gets the sack.
And we got the Notre Dame shout out there from Al Michaels, but what he didn't mention is that that's your first career sack. What's going through your mind at that point?
Yeah, it was my first start that year. JPP, Jace Pierre-Paul, went down the week before, so I got to step up and try to kind of emulate him. And so I had my first opportunity to start, and I was able to make a play to help our team, so it was really cool.
Zach Barton is an offensive guard on the Cowboys' offensive line on that play. Did you say anything to him on your way back?
We spoke after the game, and I think we've played each and every year since I've been in the league, and it's always great catching up with him on the field after the game, even in between plays or whatnot. So it's always really fun.
Who's the better trash talker, you or him?
I don't know. I speak every now and then. I'll leave it to him.
You end up playing 2 years in New York. 5 days before the 2018 season opener, they cut you. What's that process like as a football player?
You're jobless for you don't know how long, but luckily within the next day, I got a call from the Lions and they picked me up. It's just back to work. I mean, there's no time to kind of like dwell on the past or anything like that. So you just kind of move forward and try to do the best you can going forward.
What's the biggest difference between the Giants and the Lions for you on the field?
Obviously, different team, different system, learning a whole new different playbook, different leadership, and just trying to find your role on the team. And obviously, playing through the season, you kind of like grow into your role. And now it's just trying to excel at your role and what you're doing on the field. So just a little different cities. You just kind of do the best you can.
The best you can is pretty darn good. Last year, you made 14 starts for the Lions, lead them with 7.5 sacks. What led to that breakout? You had 1 sack in your 2 years before that with the Giants. What changed?
Just working. I did the same thing as I was on my first 2 years, and just got the opportunity and trying to make the best out of it. We had another defensive end go down when I first got to the Lions, Ziggy, and then I got the opportunity to start throughout the season, and just made some plays.
One of the big plays came against the Green Bay Packers, a division rival. Chased down Aaron Rodgers from behind and knocked the ball out of his hand that you guys end up recovering. Who's your favorite quarterback to take down? That one had to feel pretty good against a future Hall of Famer.
I mean, that's always a fun one. I love taking down all quarterbacks, though. They all count the same. But definitely special when you get a quarterback like that.
Now let's talk a little bit about off the field. You're heavily involved with photography. How'd that passion get started?
It's always something I've kind of been interested in. I think I bought a camera when I was here my junior year just to document me and my friends on campus doing stupid things. And it kind of evolved when I got to New York and bought a film camera and took it a little serious from there.
And selling yourself short here a little bit because you're very talented at it. You actually have a display right now at the Leica store in Soho in Manhattan. We have a few of those images that we're going to play up here behind us so people can get a look at just your eye for these. You're embedded with a Brooklyn firehouse for this series. How'd that relationship come about?
A couple of the members of the firehouse came to speak to the Giants when I was there, and they invited me to come visit their firehouse, and it was so spectacular. I spent the night there, going to fires like in the middle of the night. It was really crazy, and I told them I could document them, and it was a really, really cool experience for the past 2 years.
I read that Corey Robinson might have come along with you to one of those, and I heard that you guys couldn't tough it out.
Oh no, not at all. I think he had work at 7 o'clock the next morning, and he was there all night and went straight to work. I don't know why he did it. But it was great. It was really cool.
So would you say that their training and their waiting around in the firehouse and going to these calls, how's that stack up to an NFL training camp?
I mean, I don't think it. I mean, they're running in the burning buildings, and like it's like a really, really intense, like actual life of that situation. So I don't think it even compares to what we do on the field, but it just shows like the resiliency they have, and it kind of pushes me. I mean, I don't think there's any situation on the football field where I should be prepared to kind of attack.
This was a firehouse, too, that lost some men on 9/11. What do you take away from that personally, just having this connection with these men who are so brave, as you said, and put their lives on the line?
Yeah, I mean, obviously 9/11 means a lot to people in New York, and especially that firehouse. They lost everyone that worked there that day. And it was just really special to kind of be able to do something for them. I mean, they don't get highlighted often, so it was really cool to kind of have them in Soho at a gallery. They all got dressed up. They were all there. It was really cool to kind of do that for them, have that experience.
Now that you're in Detroit, what type of connection do you keep with them?
I mean, I talk to them all the time. I mean, I was stuck in my elevator sometime in the summer. I called one of the firefighters. He was like, "Why are you calling me? I can't do anything about this." But that was my first instinct, but we keep up pretty often. I think a couple of the guys are going to come up later this year.
Outside of photography, music is also a big part of your life. I read that you are a Deadhead.
Something like that.
How many Grateful Dead concerts have you been to?
15 or so. Like 15, yeah, something like that.
I know this is a, kind of a wasted question. What's your favorite Grateful Dead song?
That's a difficult one. Maybe Help on the Way, Dark Star. Shakedown Street's pretty good. I can name them all day. Althea. I don't know. I got a lot of songs.
How did you become a Grateful Dead fan?
Well, I had a professor here that was a Deadhead, and he like came into class like bursting one day, like talking about the Grateful Dead, and I was like, "Who's this band? This guy's freaking out about." And I researched them because I was such a music fan, and learned about the music, and ever since then I just got going to shows, and it's kind of a cool thing to go to in the summer.
We're going to open it up for questions here in just a little bit, so be thinking of some questions that you might have for Romeo, but I want to shift back to football here too. Of course, your younger brother Julian is one of the star defensive ends and a captain on this year's team. How much are you able to watch him play this year?
Every game. I mean, I watch every single game. Obviously, our quarterback went to Georgia, Matthew Stafford, so we were watching the game that night. I was a little salty, but it's been really cool watching them these past couple of years at the school I went to. It's really special.
Do you guys trade tips of the trade or anything like that?
I try to show him a couple of things, and he shows me things too. I mean, it's kind of mutually beneficial that way. But yeah, it's been really cool watching him. I try to help him everywhere I can.
He'll be coming out in the NFL draft in the spring, probably a highly rated prospect. You going to lobby the front office to get him up there in Detroit?
I'll do what I can, but I don't know how much pull I have. Probably not a whole lot, but it'll be really cool to see where he lands up.
Now, when you see this team this year, you went through a couple of tough losses during your time at Notre Dame. Were forced to bounce back, thinking of your senior season, that trip to Clemson. They went through a similar thing a couple weeks ago down at Georgia and responded. What type of mental fortitude does it take? What's the best course of action for that team in that situation?
I mean, I think they kind of showed themselves they can stand toe-to-toe with any team in the country after that game. Just stop losing. They just needed help from losing by just fixing some of the mistakes that they kind of shot themselves in the foot with, and they know that. And just going forward, they're just gonna keep pushing forward, just trying to do the best they can every game.
I believe Julian said in the offseason he wanted to get 18.5 sacks this year, which would shatter the Notre Dame record. Got off to a slow start, got 3 last week, though. Can he do it?
I mean, you got to set high goals no matter how high they are, but I think he can do it. I believe in them.
We are at Football Fridays here. We have a game against Bowling Green tomorrow. Your former defensive coordinator, Brian Van Gorder, the defensive coordinator for the Falcons now. What's the prediction for the game?
Irish by 100.
How many sacks for Julian?
At least one, hopefully. I mean, everyone's a blessing.
All right. We're going to go ahead and open it up now. We have a couple people walking around with microphones. Anyone in the audience has any questions for Romeo? We have one right here in front.
First of all, the Georgia game was difficult for us because my brother backed up. My brother-in-law was Stafford's backup at Georgia. So in our house, it was just horrible to go through that.
I feel your pain.
It was awful. However, we're big Giants fans, and we couldn't have been more thrilled when you had signed on with the Giants. And now it looks like we have to be Detroit Lion fans because half the Giants' defense from when you were there, you guys have Snacks, you've got Kennard there. But I wanted to know what was happening and what is happening, and maybe you don't want to say it in front of everybody, but what's going on that all the players from the Giants who contributed over the last 3 years, they're just like Landon Collins, JPP, Snacks. Everybody is just being like, you're so talented, and we got nothing for you. They didn't even try to trade you. Nothing. Like, it's ridiculous. So many people vacated that defense.
It's above my pay grade. I don't know. I have no clue. I don't know if I can answer that one.
Well, we wish we still had you, for sure.
Thank you.
Your brother obviously had a pretty big game last Saturday, but I guess what I'm wondering is, in games where maybe he isn't as productive as he wanted to be, do you have a message you usually try to, motivate him or kind of keep him, upbeat?
Yeah, I mean, production, like stats are one thing, but you can kind of you can make plays on the field without necessarily showing up on the stat sheet, whether it's drawing blockers to you or just kind of disrupting the offense in many different ways. But I mean, he knows that not every game is going to be a big game. You kind of got to take it game by game and just kind of do the best you can to help the team win. You're not necessarily stat chasing, you're just trying to win the game first and foremost, which is the most important thing, which they have been doing. So I think that's probably the most important thing to him.
Over here, I was lucky enough to see your head coach do a presentation a couple years ago on how practice fundamentals are actually reenacted on the field very often. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, that's something Coach Patricia preaches all the time. We try to make practice as hard as possible so the game's as easy as possible. And definitely everything that shows up in practice shows up on game day. There's no light switch you can turn on game day and perform. You kind of have to do it every day in practice.
Any other questions out here for Romeo? I'll chime back in here. You guys went 6-10 last year with the Lions. This year you're off to a 2-1-1 start. What's been the change in the locker room for this early success?
I mean, guys, we're just working hard. I mean, it's still early season. Nothing has really happened. It's September. It's a really, 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 really long season, and I don't know. We just gotta try to take it week by week. Starting from practice, learning the offense, learning the team we're playing the next week, and just trying to do the best we can. Because every team in the league is good. Every single game means the most. So all we can do is kind of take it week by week.
You guys have had some tough losses over the last 2 years. I'm thinking of that Green Bay game last year with Aaron Rodgers going crazy in the fourth quarter, thinking last week even with Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs. How do you rebound from something like that where it seems like a win is right there and then it's just not?
All you can do is just kind of learn from those losses. Even the wins, there's a lot to take away from. Every game is close to the NFL. I feel like every game comes down to 2 minutes. And it's just those little things you try to perfect during practice and just make one more extra play, or just it's really a game of inches in that sense.
I know we got a couple other questions out here. Let's head back to the crowd.
Just a quick question. So I know my son and I are both fantasy football guys, and we both have Kerryon Johnson on our team. So number one, I was just wondering if you could whisper a little something more on the bye week and get him going for next week. But the question is, what's the take with most professional football players and fantasy football? Do you guys have the teams? Are you following the stats? Just wondering your opinion on that.
I don't pay attention to fantasy at all, but I think some guys may actually be part of leagues themselves, just they play for fun. But I don't know. I don't pay attention to it much.
Romeo, there has been some talk about expanding the season from 16 to 18 games. And as many injuries as there have been already in a quarter of the season, what's your personal opinion on an expansion of the regular season?
Get probably compensated for it. I mean, there's a lot of things. I don't know. It's a long season. That's all I gotta say. I mean, I don't know. They're probably smarter people making those decisions than me. I don't know.
Who's better, you or Julian?
Golly. I'll give it to Julian. You know, I want him to be better than me.
Did you guys go back and forth when you were growing up? Like, did you guys go head to head?
We never played together. Even when I was in high school, he was in middle school. And when I graduated high school, he just got to high school. And when I left here, he just got here. So we never crossed over at all. So he kind of probably just watched me a lot. And then, but definitely in the house, we were definitely very competitive. And there was a lot of backyard football. But nothing really like orchestrated on the field.
I got one more. Do you train with Julian, like, often?
When we're with each other, our schedules kind of conflict, but when we're at home together, we try to work out together.
Before we wrap up here, let's chat a little bit more about the Lions and about this season. Is this a team? This is a franchise that hasn't had a ton of success historically. Is this a team that can finally put an end to that, make a run, go to the playoffs?
I mean, we have a really, really strong team with a lot of great guys, a lot of talented guys, and I think we're trying to do something for the city of Detroit. I think the city needs it. But all we can really do is just kind of take it game by game. You can't really look at the big picture. We try to do our best each day in practice to try to put the best on the field on Sunday. And I think we can really do something special. We just got to keep working towards it.
We were talking before this, too. You were mentioning the different systems in the NFL. In the NFC North, for example, you have Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, and Mitch Trubisky and the Bears, all three very different quarterbacks. Yeah. As a defensive end, what type of challenges do those three different quarterbacks present you? Who's difficult? Who's a little more?
They're all difficult. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is literally a magician. Like he has eyes in the back of his head, it seems like sometimes. And each and every week we face great quarterbacks, and everyone's really difficult. You have to play them all really different. And so it makes it fun, and that there's a really big challenge every single week. And you just kind of have to adapt and change it every single week.
If you could get a free shot on any quarterback, whether in the NFL right now, from your college days here, even from your own team, who would it be?
Probably any quarterback. Free shots are always free shots. I mean, I'd probably take any quarterback in that situation.
And finally here, again, let's turn back to Notre Dame football here. You mentioned that you watch all the games. Schedule looks a little bit easier down the stretch here with USC, Michigan struggling a little bit. What do you expect out of them and your brother down the stretch?
I mean, it may look easy, but those games, I mean, they all end up usually really close, and everyone, I think, plays Notre Dame up to like everyone comes to play when they play Notre Dame. So, but I look forward to watching the rest of the year. I think they'll have a lot of success. I like what I've seen so far, and hopefully they keep it going.
In a couple weeks here, they have USC at night. Your senior year, you had USC here at home, a night game. Yep. What's that atmosphere like under the lights in Notre Dame Stadium as opposed to an afternoon kick?
I mean, there's nothing like it. Even in the NFL, it's hard to really recreate an experience you have that we have here at Notre Dame. I think we can definitely take it for granted, and there's definitely nothing like playing here. I can definitely guarantee you that.
Romeo, thank you so much for taking the time, and good luck to you and the Lions the rest of the year. Everybody from the class of 2016, Romeo Okwara.